And welcome, everybody, to another glorious episode of the Put on Waivers podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day. I know it's beautiful where you are, it's beautiful where I am. I mean, I couldn't, a little bit of sweat this morning because it was a little warm, but hey, it's all good. It's all good out here on the West Coast. Put on Raiders podcast. RTPOW podcast is my Twitter handle. Ryan is RHOLM22 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those good things like that. So we are available on Apple podcasts, on Spotify, on Android, and we're also on iHeartRadio as well. So if you have the iHeartRadio app, and that app happens to be the number one app for podcasts in a lot of places, you can listen to us there on iHeartRadio as well, which is pretty cool. Thanks for everybody listening to us in Florida, Miami, Florida, Brooklyn, New York, Seattle, Washington, and Newark, Connecticut. 858-299-5592 is your text line. Get some questions off that text line about the first preseason game. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. The weather, as you mentioned, is pretty beautiful. It's a little hot today. It was close to 90. The weather's supposed to break here and get into the mid 70s here pretty quickly. So not a lot to complain about. Yeah,
this is my friend who coaches football. He said that this is two-a-day weather right here. Two-a-day weather as far as that goes. You gotta love that. So I'm gonna flip it over to you real quick because you did have a kind of a breaking story about the COVID protocols, maybe at Allegiant Stadium. I don't know if it came off of Raiders.com, but a lot of the beat writers are saying what right now, Ryan?
Basically, because of the Steve Sisolak, the governor, has come out and said you have to require a proof of COVID vaccine to get into the stadium this year, starting with the first home game, September 13th. But you will not have to wear a mask. It's through the Clear app. It's a free mobile app and health pass feature they have on there. If you're not vaccinated, the only way to get in, it sounds like, and this is very early, this broke probably 2 or 3 minutes ago, is to get vaccinated on site, and then they will let you in with wearing a mask. So I don't know if it's Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, Pfizer, how they're going to track that, but unvaccinated fans, it sounds like, are not going to be allowed in the stadium this year.
Well, I mean, listen, it's you can make it a side of the aisle issue if you want. I'm not here for that. I just know that it's about business, and when you're talking about business, people need that money. That stadium wasn't cheap. That stadium wasn't for free. So the Raiders really desperately need to have fans there, and the fans there recoup some money, and that's probably the best way of recouping that money would be for to get that place full. Where they have 50,000 people at that game this weekend, Ryan. So like this is an opportunity for the Raiders to really become an affluent franchise here as we go into 2021. If they can just start making money at the gate, which they couldn't make when they were sharing the stadium with the A's.
No, you're right. I think there's a little over 50,000, and this is coming down to money. The NFL and the Raiders specifically don't want to take that money out of their pockets. And it's interesting that when the Raiders were in Oakland, we heard a lot about Mark Davis doesn't have any money and cash flow issues that we thought would disappear when they got to Vegas, and they haven't yet. I was listening to a podcast this morning with Peter King, and he brought it up again. He's saying he's hearing around the league that the Raiders don't have any money, and that Mark Davis went on kind of a spending spree when he bought the Las Vegas Aces, and that led to some of Mark Bedane and some of the people leaving the organization. Was just the way that they were spending money when they didn't have any coming in last year due to COVID. So it sounds like we're still going to hear about the lack of cash here for the next year or two until the Raiders can get a season or two of gates and concessions and parking under their belt.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is just people will come for the novelty of it. And even if the team is bad, they'll get. If you really want to make money, they got to win money. They got to win games. They got to host a playoff game. They got to start being able to win ball games. If they're not able to win ball games, then you can forget about it. As far as that goes, it'll just be a place where it'll be 60-40 the road team. When the Packers come to town, it won't happen as far as that goes. All right. So onto the game, Ryan. There's a lot of different places where we can start. Let's start with the offensive line because everything starts with this team at the offensive line. What did you see from Andre James? What did you see from Leatherwood? I know what I saw from JJ Smith. I wasn't really thrilled with what I saw from him. That was pretty tough to watch. What are your thoughts about him and also Brandon Parker as well?
Initial thought watching Andre James is nothing glaring stood out negatively. I watched the game a second time, and he actually held up pretty well in pass block. Kind of the run blocking was questionable. Some of the guys that had some size on the interior gave him a little bit of fits, but he held his own. He's not Rodney Hudson, but we know that. But he looks like he'll be at least a serviceable, if not, league average starter, which is all you can ask for at this point from him in his first year of really playing. Leatherwood had some ups and downs. He looked good in the run game, some outside zone, some inside zone. He got some push. There were some pass blocking issues. You saw him look inside a couple of times and give up the edge. I don't know if that was miscommunication with the back supposed to chip or just he didn't see some of those blitzes coming. But Pete Carroll dialed up some blitzes. They came after the rookie.
Which was good.
It was good for him to see and get on tape, but he didn't hold up to some of those blitzes as well as you'd hoped, and especially on the third down deep in their end around the 10-yard line. Luckily, Peterman stepped up in the pocket, was able to get out, break contain it, and throw that first down to, I believe it was Keelan Doss, right around like the 12 or 15-yard line. But overall, they didn't play a lot. They both came out right at the start of the second quarter. So I got about a drive and a half, maybe, 17, 18 plays. We haven't seen the snap counts yet. But he held up, and I'd like to see him again next week and see what he does against the Rams. And more importantly, how is he going to hold up in those scrimmages against the Rams? Because he's going to see starters in those games or those practices. You were right. Jones Smith, as much as he got talked up in the offseason, he didn't look like he's worthy of a roster spot, which leads us back to who's the swing tackle and leads us right back to Brandon Parker. I was a little taken aback during the broadcast.
He's the best in the league, though, so you have to worry about it, right?
Yeah, when they said that Tom Cable thought he was the best swing tackle in the league, I almost fell off my couch. But at this point, he is the third best tackle on the roster based on what we saw out of Jones Smith. So unless they bring in competition, he's going to make this roster, which I have a lot of questions about that, and we've talked about it in detail. But he held up okay. He got the same treatment. He played one quarter. He came out at the start of the second quarter, and he played left tackle, which is the better of the two positions for him. So he's going to make this roster, it looks like, at least to be the backup left tackle, because if Colton Miller goes down, they don't really have another one unless they slide Leatherwood over, which is tough to ask a rookie to learn right tackle and then put him back in at left tackle.
My biggest thing about the whole thing with Brandon Parker is the fact that listen, knock on wood, knock on anything, that Colton Miller doesn't go down. You're putting Gruden in a spot where, like, let's be honest, like the playbook is kind of cut in half a little bit, right? Like, isn't it? I mean, you can't really run what you want to run when you have a guy like, Brandon Parker out there, as far as especially taking deep shots in the pass game, and the defense is going to know that as well. I didn't like whenever they had a couple of blitzes. I like the fact that they dialed up blitzes in this game. Ken Norton Jr. and oh my God, I can't remember his name.
Gus Bradley.
No, the head coach of the Seahawks. I don't know.
Oh,
Pete
Carroll.
Pete Carroll. I love the fact that they were down on blitzes in this game, because it just made those young people, the young pieces up front, give them those reps, like, where it's not just their own teammates as far as that goes. So that was really really good. But I didn't like it when they blitzed on the side where Parker and Simpson were. It seemed like this a couple of times they got through. They got through pretty cleanly, and it was like a lot of confusion. I don't know if that was like Peterman opposed to Carr saying, "Hey, giving up let them know where the blitz was coming from." That's also communication with a guy like Rodney Hudson, who would be able to tell them. I mean, was that Andre James not doing his part as well? So we'll have to see about that part of it. But hopefully it gets better. This week is going to be. I think this is going to be a week. There's going to be a day. Get ready for it, Raider Nation, where you're going to hear about how the defensive line for the Rams destroys the Raiders' offensive line. You're going to hear it this week. There's no way. I mean, you can watch it on film. Aaron Donald destroys, Pro Bowl guards and centers. So you can imagine what he might do. But as the week goes on, if they are able to, hold their own and get better from it, then that's what you're looking for in these scrimmages. Against the Rams. And I think the NFL is kind of doing themselves a disservices here as far as not televising these, because people would watch these over the preseason games, if you will. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe they don't want to give away too much. Coaches don't want to give away too much, but I do think if they did do that, Ryan, there would be a lot of people watching to see, these during the week scrimmages between these two teams.
No, definitely. And I live fairly close to the Rams facility. I will be venturing over there on Wednesday and Thursday and seeing if I can get a glimpse, whether that's they let people in, which it doesn't sound like they're going to do, or, climb a mountain behind the field. There's a mountain back there to kind of look in, or I'm going to try to see what I can see. And clearly, seeing Ruggs and Edwards match up against Ramsey, you're not going to see that on Saturday.
Yeah.
Seeing how is James Simpson didn't hold up very well in pass protection, as you mentioned. He was good in the run game, but didn't really hold up in pass protection. How do those two guys hold up against Aaron Donald? What if Donald switches out onto Leatherwood? How is he going to handle up on the edge? Or, Leonard Floyd, a speed rusher coming off the edge against Leatherwood. These are all things you're not going to see on Saturday, and they're going to get more out of the 100 or so reps they're going to get Wednesday and Thursday than anything they would get in the preseason game. So it'll be interesting, but and the other point you made, that the playbook does change if Brandon Parker's on the field, because you're going to have to keep a back end. You're going to have to keep tight end in to help in certain pass protections. They're going to go max protect a little bit more than they'd want, which is gives you less receiving options out in the field. It cuts the field in half. So they definitely need Colton Miller and Alex Leatherwood to stay healthy.
Yeah, definitely. No question about it. Do you see a situation? I mean, could they do a Denzel? I mean, if it got, if it got bad out there, could they put Denzel? Denzel Good did play some right tackle, put him out there, and maybe put at right guard, put Simpson at right guard, and that's, I mean, and it's hard to even make all these moves, because I think we pretty much go into the season with a foregone conclusion that Richie Incognito is not going to play 17 games. I mean, that's the hardest part. Like, when he plays, we love it, but we know he's not going to play those long periods of time. Is there something in the Raider? I mean, as far as that, it all depends on like the development of John Simpson. I don't think Lester Cotton is like a guy who the Raiders are going to be counting on. What are your thoughts about, like, can you flip him? Can you flip Denzel Good out and maybe put Simpson in to kind of solidify this line if Leatherwood needs some time on the bench?
I wouldn't do that personally. I think Denzel Good's better suited inside. He's serviceable at tackle, but I think it changes your run game. You're not going to be running as much outside zone if you have Simpson and Good on the right side of that line. If they want to stay with the outside zone, I think they're going to put Brandon Parker in. And Simpson, the pass blocking was kind of questionable during the game. So that's going to be a question moving forward. Is he going to win that job against Good, or is Good going to win that job? And just clearly Good didn't play, which tells you that they have a lot of confidence in him. He might be penciled in as a starter at this point. But based on how Simpson played, I would think that they're leaning Denzel Good right now to be the starting right guard.
Makes sense. Which doesn't mean that it's over for him, Raider Nation. It just means that now he's not ready. He's still developing. And I think players develop over time. It's not, and not everybody comes in and is a bona fide boom starter right off the bat. So don't take. I feel like I think some of these guys who aren't playing shows you that that's the starter. Like, if Gruden's not playing the guy, that's probably the starter at that particular position, right?
Yeah, and if you really look at it, if they did think that Simpson was going to start at right guard, then he would have played right guard on Saturday, not Lester Cotton. They would have flipped Cotton over to the left side. So the fact that he it took reps at left guard, leads me to believe that he's going to be the swing guard. He's going to back up incognito and good. But they do, getting him those reps at left guard is going to be pivotal, because when incognito goes down, if he doesn't play 17 games, which no one thinks he will, that he does have reps there and he can go in and play that position. And then you have Nick Martin as well, who has some experience as a center and as a guard, that gives you a fourth guy. He's going to make this team as the backup center / guard.
Down by the, and I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but down by the goal line, right? So as soon as Zay Jones caught that pass, and listen, Zay Jones had a really good day. It's good to see that the Raiders actually have some solid depth at wide receiver, if you will. And Zay Jones is a guy who looks like he's developing into a real, could be a possible, fourth, third receiver possibly for the Raiders here. But as soon as they got into the red zone, does it switch automatically to power, or does it stay with zone, kind of the zone concept of running the football? Because it just seemed like it still took a while. I mean, like it didn't surprise me that all of a sudden when I watched, because I had to watch the game later, and I was like, oh, they scored on fourth down after being at the 3-yard line. That didn't surprise me. Like, it seems like the kind of like a continuing thing here, a theme. Gruden said it was like a sore spot, if you will, about the goal line. Their woes down there. I mean, there were 2 for 4, I guess, touchdowns to field goals there. What are your thoughts about, like, does the scheme change as far as the running game goes, as far as power? Are they more power down there, or are they still trying to do zone down there as well?
When you get in the low red zone, especially inside the 5-yard line, you're not running a lot of outside zone, because those plays are going to take a little bit too long. The defense is compacted in, they're filling the gaps, they're shooting gaps. And stretching out the defense to try to get wide at that point, it's not beneficial. The Raiders didn't run a lot of outside zone in this game, and that's more to Josh Jacobs and his running style. You didn't see it. You saw mostly inside zone, some duos, some power, some gap plays. I don't think Gruden's going to empty the playbook in a first preseason game. Most of what they did was very vanilla, which is what you're going to see for the rest of the preseason. But they will run power when they get down inside the 5-yard line.
Yeah, and then obviously it's man on man. You got to move the next human being in a couple of yards, so your running back can get in. I still don't. Here's one thing I don't see a lot of too is, like, listen, preseason game, but it kind of like when they get down to the red zone, they don't really throw the ball in the end zone. It's almost like, yeah, you're shaking your head. Like you always see, like it's like the play is like not designed to go in the end zone. It's just like it's kind of that weird thing here. And when you look back at the Raiders in the past, where it was Gruden left, went to Tampa, they really didn't become that crazy high scoring, like, throw the ball all over the place kind of team until Callahan took over. I mean, that's when everybody really, like, they were like, the Raiders passed all the time. So, weird thoughts about, like, that part of it. Like, it's a weird part of it. I know Al Davis used to say, Gruden's really great inside the 20s, and then when he got to the end zone, he could never get it. He never scored. He was kicking field goals. That's something that has to change, even if the defense improves, right?
Yeah, and you're hoping that the additions of Foster Moreau and a 2 tight set, and then bring in, and hopefully Brian Edwards gives you that big body receiver where they can run some of those passes into the end zone, where they can body them almost like a basketball player and box them out. So you're going to run some slants. Your one-on-one fade balls that they threw to Crabtree a lot, you're going to throw those to Edwards and hopefully Waller on the outside. You're not throwing those kind of passes to Ruggs. You're not throwing them to Renfro or Snead or those kind of guys. And then the addition of Kenyon Drake in the red zone, I think, gives you another matchup to where they can win in space. But no, this is not a team that's going to throw the ball consistently into the end zone. It's about getting the completion and then maybe breaking a tackle and getting in there. But they're going to have to rely on the run game. If they can't run the ball inside the 10, they're not going to score a lot of touchdowns, because they're not taking shots into the end zone.
Yeah, which is just a little crazy for me. Wide receivers. We talked about Zay Jones a little bit, But DJ Turner, I thought the thing I like about DJ Turner, and I'll just say my piece, and then I'll let you talk about him a little bit yourself too. Is like good feet, good route runner, but he catches the ball with his hands. Like that is something he catches the ball with his hands away from his body, brings it in. I like people who catch the ball, like receivers who catch the ball with their hands. The only, body catcher who was a wide receiver who was really good at it is, close your ears, Raider fans, was Antonio Brown. He basically like catches the ball like he's hugging a baby. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's how he catches the football, Antonio Brown. But for the Raider, for most receivers, it's a hand, it's the ability to catch the ball with your hands. And I did like the way DJ Turner did that. I think people were talking a little bit too much about Stoner and not enough about DJ Turner, because I think DJ Turner really had a good showing this weekend.
Yeah, DJ Turner is going to be on the practice squad. He showed the ability to return kicks. He could probably return punts. He ran out of the slot. They ran some reverses. They had some design plays to get the ball in his hands in space. He had 7 catches on a couple of hitch routes that the ball was away from him. And even though he's a small guy with shorter arms, he showed a pretty decent catch radius to make some of those plays that, could have very easily gone off his fingertips and been an interception. So he showed fairly well. He's built like a truck. Like he's 5'9", probably 210 with a big lower half, but he moves pretty well and he's shifty. And
Matt Millen and Gannon made that point about how thick he was as a player. Like he's not just a normal size guy. So that makes sense.
If this guy was on the Raiders 3 or 4 years ago when they didn't have any depth, he'd have a real chance of making the roster. But I just think the 6 wide receivers are pretty much set in stone, and his best opportunities to catch on as a practice squad player.
Yeah. The Raiders have got down to 85 player limit. Kale Cookus, Dom the Bomb, as I like to call him, Dominic Ellerby, was waived. Liam McCollum, long snapper, Bo Scarborough was also waived. Caleb Scott, and then players who were released were Devontae Busby and Ethan Westbrooks, if you will, for out of West Texas A&M. That's how the Raiders got down to 85, if you will. There, one of the most intriguing situations is at running back, and we always kind of go to skill positions because people that's like the fancy thing for everybody. But let's face it, like looking at what Jalen Richard makes, looking at his. If I'm not sure what the vaccination status is of the rest of the Raiders running backs, but you can imagine a situation where, hey, the running back room is compromised with COVID, and the Raiders are 4-2, got a big game. You got to think about a lot of different things, and whether fair or not fair. Like if you're vaccinated or you're not vaccinated, that could be the difference between you making a football team or not. I thought Trey Regis did some really nice things. The Raiders had both running backs. BJ was BJ Edmonds, his name is. Played well as well. What are your thoughts about those players when you watch the game back? I think both you and I watched the game a couple of times to kind of get a gist of what was going on as far as the running backs goes. But it looked pretty good, especially in pass pro.
Yeah, with Regis, the thing that stood out to me, the 13 carries for 62 yards was good, but basically his vision, and he knew where the holes were. He trusted his blockers. He got the yards he was supposed to get, but he did show out in pass pro. There was a couple of blitz pickups, particularly in the red zone. Peterman checked to a play where he threw an out route to, I believe it was Marcel Aitman, and you saw Regis go from the quarterback's left across the formation and pick up the blitzer on the other side. So he clearly understood the protection. Which way the line was sliding and who his man was. And that's the big thing for Gruden with young running backs is they have to understand pass protection to get on the field. He's got a real chance to make the 53-man roster. He's a physical guy. He could be that kind of bell cow if anything happened to Jacobs. I don't know if he's going to give you a lot as a third down back as a rookie, but then you still have Kenyon Drake on the roster. Mm-hmm. And part of me thinks if they need cap space, clearly they can get it from Richard. But Richard, if he doesn't get back on the practice field in the next 7 to 10 days, he might open up the season on the injured list. And I believe they shortened it from 8 weeks to 3. I think you only have to be on the injury list for 3 weeks before you can be activated. You have an unlimited number of guys again this year that you can bring off IL. So there's a good chance that could happen. Maybe they get an extra look at those two guys, Emmons and Regis, throughout the preseason, and one of those guys might sneak on the 53-man for the opening week. I think Emmons showed a lot. I liked him a lot. He was built low to the ground. He was hard to bring down. I think he's going to end up on the practice squad as well. And I'm seeing something come here through quick on Twitter, another update. The Raiders have told season ticket holders who are not vaccinated they can roll over to the cost of next year or get a full refund, but they do retain their rights to their season tickets in future years. So that is the information for unvaccinated Raider fans, which probably doesn't sit too pretty with some people that forked out some pretty good money to not get in the stadium last year, and then there's a chance that they won't get in the stadium this year. So there might be some tickets on the market opening up here pretty quickly.
Listen, man. I mean, they're gonna make that money back anyway. I mean, shoot. Hey, I got tickets from a Raiders season ticket holder to go to a game myself. Yeah. You know how that goes. But yeah, it's if you want to go to the game, it's gonna have to happen. It's gonna have to happen. Like there's no other way. I mean, if you want to actually see the stadium, you're gonna have to go and get vaccinated. Jalen Richard is making $3.3 million this year. He's an unrestricted free agent in 2022. There's a team out in Los Angeles that he will be that the Raiders will be scrimmaging this week, who could probably use some running back help. They only have Darrell Henderson. I'm just throwing it out there.
If he was healthy, it would probably be, if he got into these practices, it'd probably do him some favors, but he's not. He's gonna miss the scrimmages.
Right. Well, McVay, Gruden, they're friends. Hey, listen, he's healthy. Don't worry about it. I got you. But I think both Regis and Edmonds played. I mean, they played pretty good. They played pretty good football this weekend. You can see like a little bit of a burst. I think a little spin move once you thought he was. I love that those plays where the running back thinks, do you think he's down? And then he keeps on and he bursts down for like the field for like 10, 15 more yards. I like that ability. So you have to go through Regis and BJ to see what happens as far as that backup running back situation here with the Raiders. Peterman played the entire game. I didn't think Cal Cook is. I didn't think he was going to play at all, really, to be honest with you. But there's been some development there, right? I mean, he looked like an actual functional human being, opposed to the first time he was on the field where he just threw 5 interceptions against anything would have been better than that. But I mean, good for him. I mean, like he's putting in the work. You can tell he put in the work. I don't think it still cements him as anything but a third string quarterback. But good for him that it was actually a situation where he was a guy who could be a serviceable backup in a moment where the Raiders might need him.
Yeah, he clearly knows the offense. It's his third year in the system. He knows what the checks are. He knows the protections. You saw him changing plays in a preseason game. So he would get up there to identify the fronts. He'd understand where the pressure might be coming from. He did hold on to the ball a little bit too much at times, but he did throw some nice downfield passes to Zay Jones. He did get the ball out quickly when it needed. He took a couple of sacks he probably shouldn't have. But you saw the mobility with the legs, and as a third string quarterback, you can't ask for much more. Most of these teams are running out rookies or second year guys that are taking sacks left and right and turning the ball over and fumbling or throwing picks. So I would much rather have the version of Nate Peterman we saw on Saturday in that playoff game against Houston than Connor Cook. If you're looking for quarterback depth down the line.
Oh my gosh!
If Nathan Peterman has to play a game this year, then something went wrong at some point, because I still think he's clearly behind Mariota in the pecking order.
And then like I said, I have no idea what's going to happen as far as that goes. He's always hurt. I mean, the guy is just, everyone wants a running quarterback, and then when he can't play, because he's always hurt, and that happens, right? So it is what it is. Another note, I think Arnett. I think it's just to really see. There was no all 22 available, right, for this game. I didn't see any. I went to the NFL Game Pass. Didn't see any. But the play that kind of just drove me crazy was the that third down with Arnett. I mean, just you gotta just bring that guy down on that in that situation. I mean, you gotta make. I understand you want to try to make a play on the football, but once you realize you can't, okay, fine, but you gotta bring him down on that play. But I think Hobbs is, listen, like if you keep it up, I mean, he had an NFL head coach as his college coach at Illinois. I'm not sure if that's a plus or a negative as far as that goes. I mean, not many people run the cover two as much as Lovie Smith probably did in college. But what are your thoughts about Nate Hobbs here? Because I really listen. Nobody really loves besides the mother of Nevin Lawson. Nobody really loves Nevin Lawson like that. So, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, I don't think Nevin Lawson is going anywhere. I think he's on his roster. But what are your thoughts about the way Hobbs did? And I just love to. I think you tweeted out like a actual corner blitz that worked when he actually got to the
Yeah.
quarterback. I think he got there with Cleveland Farrell as well, which was nice to see from Cleveland getting there and beating his man as well. But what are your thoughts about Nate Hobbs and his opportunity with the Raiders to make it as the starting slot corner?
Well, first of all, on Arnett, the play that you brought up, it's situational awareness. It's third down and 10 or 11. Clearly, the man's short of the sticks. He doesn't need to go for the ball there. Let him catch it, tackle him, let him punt, get off the field. So the
Yeah.
fact that he made a play on the ball, I like the aggressiveness, but he needs to understand down and distance first and foremost and getting off the field, which clearly they didn't there. Nate Hobbs surprised me. His film in college wasn't great. You knew he was a good athlete. He tested really well. The physical toughness of the Raiders talk about, his willingness to tackle, showed up first play of the game, that quick screen to the left. He took on the blocker, got off the block, and made the tackle, which was nice to see. The blitz design was good. Lamarcus Joyner probably would have run into one of his own guys or run straight into a line. It was good to see Hobbs come clean. He went a little high on the tackle. A bigger, more physical quarterback might have shook that off, but Geno Smith went down. I believe it was Phylon that met him at the quarterback there. I don't know if it was Farrell. Farrell got some pressure later in the game.
It could have been.
But Hobbs, to me, he surprised me with how well he played. He wasn't really targeted in the passing game. We don't know what the coverage looked like on the back end because we didn't have the all 22. But you didn't see guys running free in the secondary. You didn't see a lot of miscommunication on the back end. So he clearly held up in coverage. The Seahawks do a lot of balls underneath and in the flats. But Hobbs is going to be the starting. He's going to be the starting slot cornerback week one with Lawson on the bench, and I don't think Lawson gets that job back unless Hobbs looks completely out of place, and I don't think he'll do that against the Ravens. Now, the Steelers might spread him out and expose him a little bit, but he's got a real chance to hold on to that spot for the whole season.
What should be good to see the Raiders draft picks come through there. Solomon Thomas on Sunday played a whole lot. Seemed to be in the backfield a whole lot. We talk about Solomon Thomas's impact in the run game, especially.
Yeah, it's what I saw in film and what I've been saying. He's a much better run defender than he is a pass rusher. And the fact the Raiders thought they were going to bring him in to provide pass rush as a three technique just doesn't fit his skill set. He's a run defender. And you saw that he made some plays in the backfield. And I think that's where he's going to end up getting snaps. I think he's going to play outside at the 5 technique behind Farrell and Crosby, and he may get some snaps away from Farrell, and then he'll slide inside when he needs to give some breaks. But I don't see a big role for Solomon Thomas in this defense because I think Darius Phylon looked like a guy who's going to play a lot. He was fired up. He was stopping the run. He looks much bigger than the 295 or whatever he's listed at. He looks like he's closer to 310. He's probably going to back up Hankins at the 1 technique at the nose tackle, but he showed some serious get off on pass rush, and he got to the quarterback quite a bit. So I think Solomon Thomas is fading, and I think Darius Phylon's on the come, and he's going to carve a roll out of this defense.
Yeah, I did like to see, Amik Robinson, who people like Yeah, had a nice tackle at the line of scrimmage or for loss. Tanner Muse knocked some balls down, or knocked a ball down. Was able to get some open field tackles as well. So good for Tanner Muse as far as that goes. Thoughts about those two, and also Javen White had, I guess in practice everybody's been raving about how he just wants to murder people. So in practice, and he finally got an opportunity to murder people in this game, and he was the leading tackler in this preseason game for the Raiders.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up those two linebackers because if you really, really break it down, Tanner Muse, first snap on the field in base, I think it was like the second or third play, he didn't know where to line up. He's looking around trying to figure out where guys are. He was nowhere near where he was supposed to be. He did not play in the nickel, which is interesting. So Tanner Muse, they talk about, hey, he's got speed, he can do this. It was Javin White who played most of the game, and he was in all the nickel defenses. He could run. He can play all the special teams. I think at this point he's going to have a bigger role than Tanner Muse in this defense. And I know reading into preseason snaps is hard to do, but if you just think Tanner Muse should have been playing most of that game if they had big plans for him. He didn't play last year, and he's doing a position switch. And I would be shocked if he played more than 10 or 15 snaps. Javin White played 50 snaps, if not more, just trying to get him experience. But his ability to run around, you saw him, flex out. He played in the slot. He played in most of the coverage in the nickel. He played a little bit of dime linebacker. He was all over the field.
He could run.
You don't want him in the box holding up in the run game. He's not going to do that, but he does have versatility to play on special teams. And you saw him he was on all the kick coverage teams. He was on the return teams. He was playing nickel. He's going to carve out a role in this roster. Whether he's the fourth or fifth linebacker, I don't know. But I'd venture to bet at this point he plays more snaps on defense this year than Tanner Muse does.
I'm going to say this about Gus Bradley. And I think that the advantage that he has, and I hope he looks at this as an advantage, is everybody looks at him as a cover 3, only rush 4, all that stuff with cover 3. If he, with that reputation, is a positive for him, because all he has to do is blitz a little bit more than he used to. I thought he blitzed more in this game than I've seen in the past from him, and I also feel like that's an advantage for him in a lot of ways, because it's like, if everybody thinks that, okay, same front, same everything, every play, they might go to Mabel one time here and there. They might do this and that, but like, boom, he's hitting people with blitzes on second and long or second and short, and you think you might making a short passing down into a third and like 15. I mean, those kind of things really are into it to the Raiders' advantage, because I think reputation is a big thing, and if he has a reputation as being a guy who doesn't blitz, but then mixes in just a little bit more blitzing here and there, that can really help the Raiders a lot defensively. You saw it with Hobbs. I mean, Hobbs was flying off that corner, and off the slot. Nobody thought he probably was coming off that slot that hard. What are your thoughts about Gus Bradley? I know it's early. I know it's only his first game, his first fake game as a Raider, as a Raider head coach, as a Raider defensive coordinator. But that reputation could really help him in this situation, because he could be a guy who ends up, blitzing because people don't think he does blitz a lot, and that could really help the Raiders' defense as well.
Well, clearly Gus Bradley did the install on the blitz packages already in camp, because he had guys flying around the field. I don't think I've ever seen a Gus Bradley defense blitz that much. As far as coverage, he actually called cover 1 more than cover 3 last year. He was at like 35.8%. Cover 3 was 35.5%. And he does play a little bit of cover 2, but cover 1, cover 3 is very similar. One's man, one's zone, single high safety look. But I think what Bradley's doing here, and I think he's going to keep blitzing in the preseason, is it's kind of give the Ravens more to think about going into week 1 and not know what he's going to throw at them. I think he's playing into that opening week with some of the defenses he's calling. So he's putting this on tape to make the Ravens understand that he might bring blitzes and some of the different ones he might bring. And then maybe he doesn't in the game. He just plays coverage and makes Lamar beat him. But I think there's some gamesmanship here too. I think he's putting stuff on tape for the Ravens to look at come week 1.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be fun to see. I mean, listen, like I said, like I haven't seen a corner blitz be successful in a while as well. My thought process was what you tweeted. So as far as that goes, I did like that. Hey, I mean, a lot of plays you saw, even though obviously Russell Wilson's not playing this game, but the quarterback who is in there, boom, drop back. Geno Smith got to his drop, and then was checking the ball down. Like they were able to, play this defense where nobody was getting big plays. I think the fourth down play was, I think it was a third or fourth down play, right? Where
busted coverage, yeah.
Busted coverage, but of course, Darren Levitt, my dog.
Darren Levitt.
Darren Levitt had. Just push. Like plays like that. It's like you couldn't push him out of bounds, cousin. Like push him out of bounds at least, right? But give a touchdown in that situation. For me, I'm fine with that part of it. Listen, they don't give 7 points in the game. They really didn't look like they were moving the football against the Raiders. The defensive line looked good. They were constantly, stuffing the run and making plays. So that looked good as well. If the defensive line is doing a good job, that means a lot of times it's easier for the secondary as well. So we'll see what happens as far as that goes. What are your any other thoughts you had about this game that really kind of stood out to you on the positive or negative side for the Las Vegas Raiders as they head to LA, short trip to Los Angeles to face the Rams here?
I think just the defense showing that they can get off the field on third down, something we haven't seen in quite some time. You saw them giving up a lot of space underneath and causing the check down, but the biggest thing was guys weren't missing tackles. They were flying to the ball. First guy there was bringing the guy down, which is exactly what you have to do in a zone defense. Keyshawn Nixon to me stood out in this game. I took a little heat on Twitter because I said that I believe he's going to make the 53-man roster.
He will.
But when you get down to it, when we're talking fifth corner, he doesn't need to be a Pro Bowler. This guy can play outside. He can play in the slot. He did get snaps in the slot here. He's on all the kick coverage teams. He's the gunner. He's going to make this team. And Raider fans can argue about, the play he gave up. I believe it was the Chargers game in overtime when he gave up the deep ball over his head. But he showed that he can cover, he can tackle, he can play multiple positions, and he plays special teams. And I know Raider fans don't watch special teams guys, but I was watching the gunners. You know who the other gunner was? Most of the game was Nate Hobbs. So Nate Hobbs is going to play gunner. Keyshawn Nixon's going to play gunner. Javon White's going to play special teams. Tanner Muse. Those guys are going to make the roster. Dallin Levitt, last week I talked about him potentially making the roster. I don't know. You can't miss those plays in the open field. I'd like to see
Gillespie and Devon,
Joseph. I want to see Joseph if he can get on the field and be healthy. Because if you really think about it, if something happened, do you want to roll with two rookies in Abram and Levitt, or do you want to at least keep the veteran in Joseph? But Joseph's going to have to play special teams, and I think he played like 25%. I looked up all the defensive backs. I tweeted it out, their percentages of special team snaps. Yeah. And Lawson played a lot of special teams. Nixon plays a lot of special teams. And some of those other guys were in the 20 to 25% range. But none of the wide receivers play special teams.
Which is amazing.
Snead had a few snaps. I saw him running around. But as far as that, like Zay Jones doesn't, John Brown didn't. Renfro's a returner. Those guys are not on coverage units. They're not running down and covering kicks. So all of the backup defensive backs and linebackers are going to be the guys playing special teams.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it is kind of amazing to me that none of them play special teams. Like that's very odd. That's very odd.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, if you're a wide receiver who doesn't want to play special teams, come to Las Vegas.
Go find John Gruden because he won't make you play special teams.
He won't make you chase special teams at all. A question from 718 out in New York. DJ Turner versus Stoner. what are our thoughts about there? Thought about some of the thoughts about those two. Um, I thought, listen, I just felt like DJ Turner has a little bit more ability as far as like punt return, kickoff return, all those things like that. I like the fact that also I talked about his hands and being not being a body catcher, being a catcher of the football with his hands. Um, he's also, on some of those plays that he didn't go down easy. Like it took a couple of guys to get DJ Turner down. What are your thoughts about the question about like DJ Turner versus Stoner?
I think they're completely different players.
Yeah.
Stoner is going to play more on the outside. He can be more of an extra Z receiver, whereas um, Turner's going to play in the slot. He's not going to win anything outside, but he does give you, some trick play stuff, some reverses, um, some fly motion, fly sweep stuff, and kick return ability. I think they're both going to end up on the practice squad. And
Hmm.
coming out of this game, I would guess one of those two running backs, Regis or Emmons, is going to be on the practice squad. Turner. I think Keelan Doss, he looks physical. I mean, he looks like he's put on some weight. He has a
He did look.
chance.
He
Um,
did look different. He looked different.
um, yeah, Stoner. I think one of the tight ends, whether it's Bowers or what's the BYU guy's name? I'm drawing a blank. The
Bushman.
guy that Bushman, one of those guys will be on. But I think the practice squad is going to have a lot of those type of guys, and then obviously it makes in some linemen just to have extra linemen. But all those guys showed well. I don't think any of them are cracking the 53-man roster. I don't think another team is going to add them once they get released. So they have a good chance to hang around
Mhm.
uh, Vegas and see if they can get on this roster in the next year or two and do something on game days.
Yeah. So this is from a Pitt grad who's the one to know how we felt about Jimmy Morrison. I didn't really when once again they have like so I really didn't pay too much attention to Morrissey at all as far as that goes because for a bunch of different reasons, but the fact that the Raiders have Andre James, and then if it doesn't work out with Andre James, it's going to go to Nick Martin, so it would have to go crazy for Morrissey to be starting and to be playing at all. So I respect Pitt. Pitt's the home of Aaron Donald, so I respect you. I've been to a couple of games. I've been to a couple Pitt games in my lifetime when I lived on the East Coast. What are your thoughts about? Do you see anything from him this week on this game? Did you remember looking at that at all?
I actually did. He actually made a couple of nice blocks on the run game, and I was like, "Oh
Oh,
wow, who's that?" And I realized, "Oh wait, that's Morrissey."
that's
And it was late.
Morrissey.
It was the fourth quarter. He
Yeah.
was fourth, fifth string defensive tackle. There was one run play down close to the red zone. I remember went to the left side. And he had a reach block, and then he was able to hook and seal and got the edge a little bit there from the center position. He created a nice lane, really good technique. He's not a big guy. He's not
Hmm.
going to win any brawls in the trenches, but he showed some pretty good technique, and he knew where to get to. He, in my opinion, will be on the practice squad as well.
Yeah.
He's just a grinder. He's a Gruden grinder. He's going to find his way
Yeah.
on this team. And a year from now, could he be the backup to Andre James and take Nick Martin's roster spot? Sure.
Yeah.
The
Makes
Raiders,
sense.
I could absolutely see that, but he's not ready right now.
No, not right now. Okay, that's fine. Javen White and Tanner Muse. The kind of the battle, the kind of like that little battle there. What'd you see from Tanner that you like this week? And then Javen White. For me, Javen White was just. I think he was everywhere. I think he was just like he just. I mean, he got shaken up a little bit. I thought maybe he had a concussion. I'm not sure if he had a concussion in the game. But he's everywhere. The guy just run. I mean, the fact that he was able to play he played specials. He played, safety. He played corner. He played all these different positions at UNLV. Must have been pretty cool for him to play in front of folks in Vegas. What are your thoughts about on Javen White and Tanner Muse on Sunday?
Jalen White, he's a nice hybrid player. He's not big enough to hold up in the box consistently as an every down guy, but he will have a spot on this team
Yeah.
in the nickel. If something happens to Littleton or Moreau, at this point, I would think that Jevin White is going to come in and play. They're going to have some defenses for him to play in the nickel, whether that's rushing the passer. We haven't seen him do that yet, but we know he's fast. But he's going to be able to do certain things and match up. He can play the overhang over the slot.
Mhm.
Tanner Muse, other than the time he came off the edge and tipped the ball, he didn't really do anything. I didn't really notice him on the field, and I was kind of looking, paying attention to who was playing where, what positions, what point in the game are we, and I just don't remember seeing him on the field a lot. Which to me, I would be concerned about that. No, like I mentioned earlier, he's doing his position change, and he's basically a first-year guy.
Yeah.
That he just, and Amik Robertson's the other one. He didn't get on the field till the fourth quarter. He played one series outside and one series in the slot, and that was it. So that was a little concerning.
Yeah. We'll see what happens as far as that goes. Could Amik get cut?
At this point, that if they keep 6 corners, I think he has a chance to hang around for the first 2 weeks. But when Nevin Lawson comes back, who's going to go? It's probably going to be one of those corners.
Did Rasul Douglas play in this game?
He did. And if you did notice, Brady Wilson played. Ren Wilson, or the guy they got from Atlanta, I forget his name. He played with the second unit that came in the game. So he was ahead of Robertson on the depth chart.
Had another. He's the one who had down the right sideline, had a nice breakup on the high point of the football there. So you had him. Trying to think who else was there. So we got one. So if we're counting corners, we're counting.
Arnett Nixon started.
Arnett Nixon. I'm talking about for the possible 53. So we're looking at Trayvon, Casey, Hayward. That's 2.
Hobbs and Arnett.
That's 4. They're going to keep 6. So
I would say Nixon is going to make the roster because of special teams, and then Lawson's the 6th. But he has a roster exemption for 2 weeks. So who's going to be the guy that takes his spot for the first 2 weeks?
That should be interesting as far as that goes. Isaiah Johnson did he just get activated? Is he gonna play this? You think he's gonna be? He seems like body wise
should fit in this defense.
He should fit in this defense. It's just kind of a weird thing to look at when you look at his build and everything like that. He feels like he would fit this defense pretty well when you look at his height, weight, arm length. He's 6 feet. Can really stretch. Has a good reach as far as like being able to to fight with corners, whatever. As far as that goes, I think that's crazy to see. What Amik to cut off Amik 4th round pick getting cut? That's kind of tough. But it might
Johnson's a 4th round pick too. Like, could you get Johnson to the practice squad though? Maybe
you could.
Johnson's not making the 53. Like,
he's not.
I don't see any way that he makes the 53.
He's not. Diablo going to be the practice squad guy as well.
Can you get him to the practice squad? I don't know. It depends on what he puts on tape for the next 2 weeks. Yeah. I would think that he's in the mix there as a linebacker. Maybe they keep 6, but
maybe Darren Lee is not a guy who they end up keeping, right?
Darren Lee barely played at the end of the game. I don't think that he's going to make this team.
No way. That's interesting to see what happens. And then Daniel Carlson just came back from the COVID list. So we'll see what happens as far as that. Had a good season last year. I think Raider fans like Daniel Carlson, his ability to kick field goals, but we want to see less of him if we can.
I kind of like that punter, the guy that they had on. Remember his name, Corliss something. He looked all right.
Corliss Waitman. Yeah, I know.
I like left-footed punters.
I don't know. I don't know about you, but like it was weird to me to actually have like a right, like when I transitioned into Madden, I didn't realize how long Sebastian Janikowski played with the Raiders until I had to kick with a right-footed kicker. I was like, this is weird. Yeah. It was actually really weird to actually do that as well. The Rams coming up. I think the same kind of thing kind of goes to it as far as that goes, because we're looking at a team that we're looking at their defensive line versus the Raiders' offensive line, and I think that's where that whole thing lies. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's going to be a matchup in the trenches, and they're going to see where this line is, and it's going to be a battle. I think, like you said earlier, we're going to get tweets that some of these guys got whooped by the Rams in practice, and there's going to be some good reps where we hear otherwise. I wouldn't take too much out of it. I think it's it's good to have these guys get those reps against someone other than their own guys, because the starters aren't playing in the preseason until week 3, and if they do, it won't be very much. Like I said earlier, how are the wide receivers going to handle the corners from the Rams? I think it is good. Howard Ruggs and Edwards going to handle it. I don't think you're going to see Darren Waller in any of these practices either. They're going to probably keep him out. So can those guys win one-on-one matchups? And then on the other side, how do the Raiders corners, how does that secondary hold up against Matt Stafford and the receivers of the Rams? So we're going to learn a lot about the offensive line and the defensive backs in the next 2 days.
This is, and there could be better wide receiver groups, and I hope the Raiders get to a level where they become my favorite wide receiver group. But this is my favorite wide receiver group in the NFL. With Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, who I think is going to be a good one, and
Deshaun Jackson.
And Deshaun Jackson, like, and that's why I think that, to me, and like I understand that this is the first year that Matthew Stafford is going to be with the Rams. That's why I do kind of chuckle a little bit with all the Niner talk in the NFC West, but we'll talk about that on the Put on Waivers NFL show. As far as that goes, all right. I mean, I just think this team is. I want to see these corners battle these wide receivers too, especially in those tight formations that nobody else runs except for McVay. That should be fun. That should be a fun time. I'll tell you, NFL. Listen, we would rather turn the lights on and watch a 3-hour practice with 2 teams than watch these preseason games. I mean, put them in the stadium. Let's go. Let's make it happen. As far as
I'm going to try. I'm going to try to get there.
Listen, if I have to send you my drone, make it. They'll probably shoot it down in security out there in Los Angeles.
I'm sure they will.
As long as we get the footage, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. That'd be fun. That should be
Just
fun
download it as fast as you can.
Exactly. You ever see like the Mission Impossible movies? Download it quickly, and you see the bar coming before the bad guy comes. That'd be fun as well. So listen, the Raiders, Rams, coming up. Probably the dress rehearsal will be the Niners, which will be fun because the Niners and Raiders hatred back and forth for 2 teams who never play is amazing to me. But as far as that goes, but this is a good week of preparation, good week of, if you're going to face the Rams, why not face a team very not similar to the Rams, but surprised the Ravens first game, face a team like the Rams here, where they have that physical toughness. They want to push you around there. They play bully football. Before you play some other bullies, why don't you play the Ravens? You play the Rams here, and that would be fun to see. What happens there as far as that goes. Anything else you want to say in parting here, Jay? Ryan?
No, just it was good to get out of there. Like we mentioned, with no injuries. We didn't hear about anything yesterday coming out of Raiders camp that they sustained any serious injuries. So it's always good to get a win. It's even better to come out with no injuries, and we're 24 days, something like that, away from the opening kickoff.
Yeah, should be fun. I am going to get some teeth pulled tomorrow, so Rare Nation, pray for me. I can go to the doctor for anything, but there's something about laying down with your head up and somebody having metal tools in your mouth that drives me absolutely crazy. So I avoid dentists like the plague, but these company puppies got to get out. They got to get out of my mouth. Otherwise, I'm gonna lose my mind. So these teeth got to go. So wish me luck as far as that goes. All right,
Good luck with that.
No, it's annoying. I'll be drinking smoothies the rest of the week. All right, Rare Nation, take care. Ryan, have a good night.
All right, thank you.